So today I wanted to talk about right action. And in that conversation, I'll also talk a little bit about love. Like, what is love? What does that look like? And I want to say right off the bat that love is not necessarily never upsetting the apple cart. If that were really true of love or right action, right, that would mean that we don't upset anyone, offend anyone, maybe even, contribute to a little chaos, then Jesus would not have accomplished anything, right? I mean, if he were to have restricted his definition of love to just be nice to everyone, just make sure that I don't upset anyone, make sure that my words don't trigger anyone, he would not have done what he did, which was to be right in his incredible heart, which is where the male and the female are balanced. He was able to lead himself from within, but from a loving place. And many people were very upset by his words, um, were very offended by his words, were very offended by his claims of being the Son of God, the Son of Man. So love does not necessarily look like being nice. Love or right action, right? There is a feeling of love in the sense of like this deep care. When you really awaken the heart, there's a feeling of deep care, deep listening, deep presence with whoever you are with. But I think people have a distorted definition of what love means, and they interpret it as meaning that you can never be firm with someone, you can never be direct with someone, you can never be tough with someone. You know that you're being asked to develop those qualities of being stern, of being direct, of being holding iron boundaries if you're doing, that lovey-dovey thing, and it's your life is getting more and more out of balance, more and more chaotic, more and more, like I often say, if the net result of your compassion is that people keep using you or you remain in abusive relationships, you're not getting the message. That's not love. People that are in unconscious female energy, they can lean too much into compassion, but it's actually a trickster movement where that compassion paralyzes you from actually doing the right action, which might be to have the strength to walk away from something. The reason why I think a lot of people come to me almost on a daily basis and ask me questions about stuff they're learning on the internet. You cannot homogenize spiritual advice. There's certain um, universal truths, like the most powerful spiritual practice, right, besides listening to silence, is focusing your awareness on your heart. Just whoop, dropping your awareness into your heart, um, making your desire one pointed, wanting wholeness, wanting psychological, spiritual. Right. Let me just stop for a moment and say the difference between oneness. When I say psychological oneness, I mean within my individual self, right? I am whole. So it's not just that I feel a felt sense of connection and intimacy with all of life. It's that when the relative world comes into play with my relationship with money, men, friends, uh, my relationship to anything, right? Nothing, my environment does not cause me to perceive lack about myself. The environment does not control me. That's psychological oneness. The body does not control me. The body, right? If I'm sick, if I'm whatever's happening in my body, I'm not going to let that mean something negative. I'm not going to perceive lack. I decide that I'm whole regardless of whatever conditions are appearing. That's psychological oneness. And it plays out in the relative world. You never know in life, right? I could not have anticipated to feel a trigger that I could have only felt at a certain stage in my life, right? As I explained in other videos, I was so intimately intertwined with all that is. And then I started to feel a pressure of, oh, I'm getting older and I don't have children. That pressure didn't exist before I hit a certain age. So that that challenged me to alchemize even deeper in my personal consciousness, the feeling of wholeness. I'm not going to let any condition or the conditioned world that says if you don't have this by this time, or I'm not going to allow ideas to make me perceive lack about myself. That is psychological oneness, and it is very important. And if you don't do that psychological work, especially if you've had a Kundalini awakening, your vessel, your psyche, your soul cannot hold the energy of oneness. And in fact, a true Kundalini awakening will demand that you look at these things, will demand that you look at your relationship to the relative world and how it controls you. And the goal, one of the goals of Kundalini, is that none of it controls you. And that's true desirelessness. That's true desirelessness. Uh, it's not that things will not be created through you. It's not that you don't have things you'd like to experience, but you really never feel that anything is missing. So, but back to right action and love. Depending on your karma, right? I was saying you cannot homogenize spiritual advice. There are certain universal truths, but it depends who you're talking to. Even when it comes to things like intuition, learning human design is very humbling in a way, because some people say, do what makes you happy. That's your intuition. And some people have emotional intuition. Some people have binary or splenic intuition, which is like a quiet gnosis in the moment, which is my kind of intuition. So when somebody says, do what makes you happy, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, no. It's not necessarily what makes me happy. It's what I know needs to happen. That's my feeling of intuition. Some people say intuition makes you uncomfortable. Well, it depends on your relationship with the unknown. If you're in love with the unknown, if you are the unknown, then the more unknown something that comes into your life is, actually the more exciting and beautiful it is. Even if it to your ego seems like a negative thing, an unknown feels comfortable to you. But you can't homogenize spiritual advice, because depending on who you're talking to a completely different vessel. I can't tell a person who's leaning into unconscious feminine energy and getting lost in people pleasing and doormat karma to be nice. And neither should they swing and be volatile and cruel, which is the tendency before you open the center, before you open the heart center. The tendency is to swing from pole to pole. The center, being in the center, is being in the heart, where the loving, the highest thing will be done. It will be done. And that does not necessarily look like anything in particular. That could look like saying enough is enough in a situation and being extremely firm about something, right? Like, it's not, sometimes if you have the attitude of like letting go and letting God, the balance of the male and the female is knowing that balance between getting involved and stepping back, about intention and surrender, about participating and taking a step back. It's not one or the other, right? When we're too involved, we're controlling. When we're not involved at all, we're disassociated. So the balance of the male female, which is in the heart, there's just a knowledge of the perfect blend of softness and directness. There's a perfect blend of male and female. There's a perfect blend of listening and talking. There's a perfect blend of intention and surrender. It's just a perfect blend. And you cannot ascend, you cannot embody God consciousness without balancing the genders. The heart balances the gender. So the most potent practice to balance the genders is to reside in the heart, to speak from the heart. Before you talk to a patient, a client, a parent, even in a difficult situation, you'll realize that when you speak, the right thing will come out of your mouth, meaning the perfect blend of male and female. Something straight from the quantum field will come out of your mouth, and it might not be, nicey. And I love the example of when people describe like Zen masters, where like 1 minute they'll be like smiling and blissed out, and then the next minute they'll like smack you with a stick, because they're doing that which is needed, right? They're so in the present moment that they are doing exactly that which is needed. So one way to balance the genders is to do a process called Rohan, which I do. Many people have reached out to me recently wanting to work with me. There's a reason I don't have a website. There's a reason that I'm not super vocal about how to contact me, is because the people I work with very intensely, and I work with almost as a commitment to at least a year. So I will just say it, if you are feeling that, I work through the system of Rohan, but I have my own wisdom, my own insight that I've been maturing since way before I learned Rohan. Everything that I share on this site, on this channel, is wisdom from my own life and from my intimate relationship with Kundalini. I have a fondness, especially, not that I have favorites, but like people that are experiencing extreme Kundalini awakening. I have a calling to help rough those waters for people because I know how to do it. But that requires that you work with me intimately, not just in sessions. And again, I think I mentioned in other videos, it is a financial commitment, but I work with people on an ongoing basis, aftercare, in between care, helping them integrate. Because when you do work and when you experience the depth at which I work, it really, it's like you open Pandora's box in a way. Like that veil between the conscious and the subconscious and the unconscious is kind of dissolving. Could be a lot for a person. So to talk with someone like me who has been through that is very helpful. So I'll just put it out there. I am accepting a few more people, but I am also being called to go in other directions in life. So while I've tried a few times to say like, okay, I'm done with this now. But God likes to use me in this way. So I'm still accepting a few people, but pretty soon that will be full. So if you feel that you can make a financial commitment, and I'll tell you more details of that if you contact me, and a time commitment, which is talking with me and also working on these 7 levels, which range from 3 days in a row to 3 hours a day. Towards the end, it ends up being like a 5-day process that's like up to 7 hours a day. You might want to repeat certain processes. It truly helps, because Kundalini amplifies everything. If something is repeating itself and stuck and gnawing at you, skillfully ironing out these things will help tremendously, but they might also bring up a deeper layer, in which case you need support, which I can give you. So my email is alexandrafrancesca87@gmail.com if you feel this. I also work more casually with people, just talking sessions, but my passion is really in the mentorship, and in the Rohan, because this work really goes beyond this life. It's the vessel you carry with you into your next life. I mean, what I have experienced with Rohan was absolutely amazing in terms of I was so outside of my body. So outside of my body. It felt like I was standing on a house with a chimney, the chimney being the central channel. And I was trying to like jump down the chimney and get in the house. And I just couldn't do it. I would jump in and get blown out. by a belief, by a block. So it helped me come into my body, of which I am so grateful. Oh my God. I am so grateful to this work. And it's relatively unknown for a good reason. It is not for everyone. So if you feel called, you can reach out to me. Just wanted to restate that I'm going on a long trip in a couple days. The soonest I would be able to start work with an individual would probably be towards the winter. And if anybody is in France, and you would like to chat, I might open myself up to that as well. So I hope this is helpful. This is what I wanted to come through today. The male and the female, the right action comes from the heart. It comes from presence, and it is not, do not have any ideas of what that is. Think of the Zen master. Think of the bamboo stick smacking you in the face. Sometimes think of volcanoes in nature, right? Like, we have volcanoes and they explode sometimes. A reaction is not always an unconscious thing. It's not always unconscious. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope you have a beautiful day.